Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Extra Time TV. This is Andre Sokdal, and once again, returning with us is Andre. I always like to pronounce it like this, Samuel, although it's Samuel, depending on who wants to listen. So welcome back, Andre.
Hi, nice to be here, man. Sorry I couldn't make the last one.
Okay, yes, you were missed because very few people, could have that passion talking about Trinidad and Tobago football like us. We've been through thick and thin. So listen, there's so much going on with Trinidad and Tobago football right now. But before I get to that, I want to thank all the viewers and subscribers and commenters. They have been tremendously interactive and engaging with the content, and I've been trying to respond to every single message. And we really appreciate that and continue to do that because we want to keep that, as we say in Trinidad and Tobago, the vibe going. Thick or thin, continue to support in between the qualifiers. We'll always have content. But the breaking news, the final round of the World Cup qualification for the Concacaf region, the teams have been drawn. Of course, not to be tunnel vision, but we're going to talk about the Trinidad and Tobago group. We are in Group B with Jamaica, Curaçao, and Bermuda. So, Andre, let me hear your initial reactions to that.
All right, well, I think it's an extremely good draw. I think personally, I would have wanted El Salvador instead of Curacao, but I think we can't ask for a better draw than that on paper. A lot of people don't know how strong Curacao is, so assumedly, this, in the eyes of most people, is as good as Trinidad and Tobago could get. And even for all of the teams, I think Jamaica would have wanted Curacao, and Jamaica would have wanted Trinidad. Jamaica would have wanted Bermuda. I think Curacao would have wanted Trinidad. Curacao would have wanted Bermuda. Because a lot of these teams want to get away from the Central American opposition, and it's an all Caribbean-based group. So we now assured of representation in the 2026 World Cup from a Caribbean standpoint, which is really great. And now we just have to battle amongst ourselves to see which one of us going to come out and be representing the region.
Correct. And a lot of people, you rightfully brought up Curacao, Bermuda as well, Dick Advocat, for those of you who follow football, is a world recognized coach, top level coach. So he is no slouch. One of my personal favorites over the years. He's Dutch, and I honestly, my over analytical brain started working out the scenarios and how it's going to go. And at a glance, for the casual viewer, as you said, Jamaica, everybody's looking at Jamaica, and rightfully so. They have a very strong squad. They have very serious ambitions of getting back to the World Cup. And it's interesting, two countries that haven't been there in a long time, Jamaica in 1998, us in 2006, have one of the best chances. And wouldn't it be wonderful if Trinidad and Jamaica go through? That would be fantastic. Two Caribbean teams. It would be just wonderful for the region as well. But, at a glance again, a lot of people have been sending me messages and saying, it's an easy group. And while I like the group, and I think it's, at this stage in the tournament, all the teams are at a certain level. It's definitely not going to be as easy as some people are making it sound. I think it's going to be very difficult, how we navigate these games. They're home and away games. So also, just for people who don't know, and I keep saying I'll do a video for this to explain the overall qualifying process. The top team goes automatically to the FIFA World Cup, and the runners-up have to go through a playoff. So, it would be nice, I think, knowing Dwight Yorke and the attitude he's trying to bring to this team. I know generally people would say, okay, let's get that second spot. But I think the right attitude is to, aim for that top spot. Even if we don't get it, that's the right attitude. I don't think we should go with that attitude of trying to come in the second spot because, that's just the wrong frame of mind. And I can't see Dwight Yorke thinking like that, being, the winner that he is. So, Andre, a lot of people are talking about us, clinching that second spot. But, realistically, as a guy who's been following this team for years, we've seen the transitions from coach to coach to cycles. How do you think, Trinidad should approach this? And what do you think they'll end up?
Well, I think we have a chance to even win the group. I think Jamaica, yes, is the most powerful team in the group. They're head and shoulders above the other teams in terms of personnel, in terms of where they play. And right now, they intend to get stronger because we hearing of the likes of Mason Greenwood potentially donning the Jamaica kit and joining up with their squad as well. So I think we have to look at the games and the group games and see how they fall. Our first game is at home against Curaçao. And just to touch on Curaçao a little bit, yes, you said they're coached by Dick Advocat. hugely respected coach worldwide. They also have some strong players.
Yes.
And so it's not players who live in Curaçao who are playing for Curaçao, essentially. Curaçao have tapped, into the Dutch lineage. So they have touched into their Dutch diaspora. So there are lots of players playing for Curaçao who are playing in the top leagues in both Holland and Belgium primarily. They even have a couple of players who used to play in England. It might be familiar with the Bacunia brothers who played with Birmingham City, Aston Villa. There was a Cuco Martina. I don't know if he still played with Curaçao, but he used to play with Southampton and Everton. So they have players with high pedigree playing at top level clubs in Europe who have come back and to play with Curaçao. And just to touch on another group, Suriname is also in the same boat, where there are a lot of Surinamese players who are playing at very high levels in the French, Dutch, and Belgium leagues who have pledged their allegiance to Suriname. And Suriname, even though they're in pot four and they're in a really rough group with Panama and Guatemala and I think it's El Salvador, they also have a chance. So how I see it, we have to play one game at home first. The actual dates are not, but we have the flow of when the matches are going to take place. So our first game is against Curaçao in Trinidad. And then we're going to play 3 away games. We're going to play in Jamaica, then we're going to play in Bermuda, then we're going to play in Curaçao. Now, how I see that, I'm going to be particularly blunt. We must win that first game against Curaçao. If we don't win that first game against Curaçao, I don't think we could win the group. We might be in and it'll be even tough to get second. But that first game against Curaçao is a must-win for us to have a chance to get into the group. In first place in the group. All in all, I think we have a chance. I mean, the rivalry between Trinidad and Jamaica is there, although it wasn't present in the Gold Cup because they absolutely steamrolled us in the Gold Cup. But in terms of the passion for the game, I like to liken the rivalry between Trinidad and Jamaica to Liverpool and Everton. That even though Liverpool on paper is the better team, when it comes to that derby, all of that goes through the window. A Merseyside derby is a scrap fight, is a battle. It doesn't matter who on which end of the table. It's always a game that Liverpool takes very seriously because Everton are always up for it. And I think at this moment in time, there was a time when Trinidad and Tobago was the dominant team in the Caribbean, but now for the past probably 10, 15 years, it has probably been Jamaica, and they are the top. So we have to bring that dogfight into that matchup. So I think we have a chance. It's going to be tough, but I think with a good start, if we beat Curaçao, I think confidence will be up, and I think we should be able to do it.
Absolutely spot on. I think we watching all these campaigns for years is very important, especially with the stakes that's really high, to start off really strong at home. It sends a good statement. It builds on the momentum that we're already having, and we'll get to that further on in the conversation. With the Unity Cup, the qualifiers, and the Gold Cup. I believe a lot of people initially were a bit worried about all those games, but I actually think it will work in our favor to have that continuity that you need with teams that you don't normally get at international level. Dwight Yorke has been very fortunate, and kudos to whoever arranged the Unity Cup tournament in such close proximity of each other with all these fixtures right now. Where at the end of this Gold Cup, which will be another discussion in a while, he will have a significant amount of time working with this team, gelling with the team, working out little bugs, playing against high quality opposition. So by the time we get to those games, in the past, I would have been worried. One of my biggest concerns was always lack of top quality friendlies. We'd usually kind of scrape and get whoever we can in recent years. And genuinely, it never really pushed the team or prepared them how they needed to get. No disrespect to the opposition teams, but it was not the level to push us. And also, with Dwight Yorke experience, we mentioned that multiple times in all the videos we did so far. He has been here before. He has won things, and that's very important. Forget tactics. From just interacting with coaches, around clubs and even working with some teams, I do notice at the higher levels, while tactics are essential and training, that ability to motivate and get your players behind your system is so important. And definitely Dwight Yorke has that.
Yes, most definitely. I think a lot of the games, a lot of these matches, and a lot of what goes on in the locker room is psychological. And sometimes you will see a team play one particular way in the first half, And then in the second half, they turned it around. And a wonderful example is the Saudi Arabian game against your beloved Argentina.
Yep.
I remember, I think they were down 1-0, and the coach gave such a riveting speech halftime where he was telling the players, if you want a selfie with Messi, wait for it after the game. We are here to compete. And he basically roused and was able to motivate those players to the point where they came back and they actually won the game. And what I've noticed, though, and I'm sure you've noticed it as well, we are becoming a second half team.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to the game against St. Kitts. The game against St. Kitts, we were down. Or let me go back even further. Before St. Kitts, the game against Jamaica in the Unity Cup, we were down. Then we came back and we fought in the second half. We showed an extreme fight in the second half. Even in the game against Ghana, we were down 3-0 in the first half, and we gave a better account of ourselves in the second half, where we only conceded one more goal. Against St. Kitts, we were drawing 2-2. And then in the second half, we essentially won that second half 4-0. Against Costa Rica, we were down 2-0 in the first half, and we essentially won the second half 1-0. So there's something happening at halftime, which I hope we could get transferred into the first half and get from the start of the game. But there's something happening. Yes, to a certain extent, it involves a lot of technical twitching. And Dwight Yorke is learning on the job. He played at the highest level, but he's also finding his feet as a coach and also learning these players. And these games will give us that. But I think that he's showing that ability to get the players going, or letting them raise their levels at halftime, and that's something to look forward to. And these Gold Cup games, as you rightfully say, will be a nice little gauge. He will be able to separate the sheep from the goat after this tournament, definitely. I still believe that we require one or two fresh faces, at least in the defensive line. We need to find a couple players somewhere. I know they're out there. So it's just for us to, as Dwight says, do his due diligence and get them over the line. And then we should have a formidable squad against Curaçao in early September.
Correct. Rightfully so. Yourself and many others, myself included, addressed the defense is clearly an issue. Dwight Yorke himself addressed that it's something he's working on. There's a lot of players out there. I've been getting a lot of comments in the comment section about their suggestions, and they are valid. They basically echoed what you were saying, Andre. The types of players we need, and I'm sure Yorke is looking at those. So it's an exciting time, folks, and it's an exciting time. And as Andre said in our last videos, stick with the team. A lot of people tend to jump ship from the moment results go wrong. I personally, and Andre experienced this as well. We had some serious more downs and ups in the last couple of years, but there have been sprinkles of potential with this new generation of players. We even saw it with Angus, with his team. There were moments where the players came back, and funny enough, with the Gold Cup, and we'll talk about that in a little while, when they played USA in the Concacaf Nations League, you saw another example of what you were talking about, Andre. We are a second half team, and Dwight Yorke said it. We are still a reactive team. It's something I've seen even when we were in the past. I remember when we had the qualifiers for 2006 with that great team we had. There were a couple of games I remembered, for whatever reason, the traffic. You would get into games, and usually, I don't know if it was Guatemala and so on. I think that's when Latifi came back. And we had a 3-2, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, or 2-1.
Yeah, that's what we beat Guatemala 3-2.
Right.
I think still scored the last two goals of that game, yeah. Correct.
Right. Magic game. The stadium was a little bit scanty, but I remember that's the diehard fans. But I always remember a lot of those games we conceded first. And that's something we definitely need to work on. I could see the sharpness and fitness levels improving with the players. It's not perfect. It's not where it should be yet. But it's good to see some progression. It's been a long time where we've seen that. Sometimes we see a good result and then we go two steps back. But even the loss against Costa Rica, the errors were obvious. And I'm pretty sure a coach, like Yorke and Russell and those guys could sit down and address those things when they do their post-match analysis and doing video sessions and so on. So it's an exciting time. But just before, we move on to, the other topic, I'm going to address, sometimes, and I understand why. There's a lot of cynics in Trinidad and Tobago football. For example, when we get to the Gold Cup, and maybe the World Cup, I'm manifesting it. If the results don't go our way, for example, in the Gold Cup, people tend to just go all doom and gloom. And, I really, and maybe that's because two of us analyze games a little bit more. We would tend to see the positives rather than the negatives. So, your thoughts on our performance in the Gold Cup? Because some people are already saying it's like they're already making pre-made excuses. If we don't perform in the Gold Cup, and we get a bad result against USA and these other teams, they're already saying it's like a step back, which I disagree with. We still have to see the performances, but what are your thoughts on that thought process?
Yeah, well, this Gold Cup competition is a competition I really wanted us to qualify for, and thankfully we did in the series against Cuba. And I just wanted us to have an opportunity to play more games against teams in or around at the level that we are supposed to be at leading into the World Cup qualifiers. I think USA will give us a decent opportunity to test that because they are obviously of the best of Concacaf. They don't have their full squad of players, which we will get more into later on, but it's important that we look at the Gold Cup as a means of testing and gauging where we are. We are playing a CONCACAF powerhouse in USA. We are playing a CONCACAF rival in terms of Haiti is basically on our level. There are a couple of stronger players than us, but in the grand scheme of things, Haiti and Trinidad and Tobago are similarly matched. And then we are playing an international side that we know little or hardly anything about in Saudi Arabia. So it kind of tests us on the world stage as well. So you're getting players to get that, you're getting the best of CONCACAF, somebody at our level, and then that international exposure with a team like Saudi Arabia. So I think this tournament will kind of give Dwight a lot more experience because Dwight still needs coaching experience. I think it will also build the relationship between the players a little bit more, build the relationship between Dwight and his players, and create that camaraderie and an environment for us to succeed later on.
Yes, correct. And just to end this off before we move on to the next topic, one thing I just try to put in the thoughts of people out there. Fans love to talk about coaches and tactics. We all do this, but with all things considered, with the financial status of Trinidad and Tobago football, all the problems we had in the past, and where we are now versus a couple of years ago, that's a whole other topic. With the normalization committee and why they were there. I think with all things considered, I think we got within our budget the best possible option in terms of coach. Former, legend player, impact, gets that bounce in the players that we need, and the fans. A lot of fans who I knew were a bit disenchanted with the game have returned, and of course, we are a society where if things don't go our way, which is bad, and I'm hoping we change this. Even Leo Ben Hackett spoke about this years ago, that we tend to jump ship when things don't go well. But I think with all things considered, and as just to build on what you're saying with Dwight Yorke building his experience, I think we have the right combination of the coach we need right now, the right support and momentum and response on the players and fans. And there's a lot more to be positive. And I'll even, I'm analytical and I look at both extremes, the positive being we get to the World Cup and everything is wonderful. But I also understand coaches need continuity. And it's very important when they're analyzing Dwight Yorke's performance, those other aspects they have to pay attention to. So, of course, it's a game that's judged by results, unfortunately. So sentiment sometimes doesn't always play a factor, but we'll see. But Andrew, before we move on to the next topic, I found this, and I know you will appreciate this a lot. This is a sentimental jersey I have here from back in 2016, folks. Andrew was there those weeks.
Yeah, that was with Stephen Hart or after Stephen Hart?
This is Stephen Hart squad here, and you can see, all the things. You were there at the game doing your interviews and so on, and I managed to get all the. Oh my gosh, it's not even framed. So yes, folks, I get a little bit sentimental. I know Andre has one as well. So folks, let us know what you think in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, share. We do appreciate the support and also the comments. It really helps the channel and it really engages us with the fans out there all over the planet, because apparently there's Trinbagonians everywhere. You can go anywhere on the planet and you'll probably find one of us over there. We appreciate the comments, and all comments are appreciated, and feedback.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching Extra Time TV. Don't forget to like and subscribe.